hard work, intelligence, and determination, where degrees and resumes don't matter, where even a high school diploma is not necessary to lead divisions of men and women. So in 2009, I accepted an assignment with Pride International on the as-of-yet unfinished Deep Ocean Ascension. Now, months later, in mid-April 2010, we were sailing through the storm near the Cape of Good Hope. The weather cleared as the storm passed, and the next day, April 20th, we awoke to clear skies and smooth seas. It was 5:30 in the morning when we had our first meeting, but back in our Houston headquarters, the time was 9:30 p.m. An hour passed, and I was in my office working on paperwork when Cameron Whitten, the ship's second officer, scrambled up the stairs with a confused look on his face. He had just been to the crew meeting where one of the guys, calling home after a late shift, got word of a blowout on a rig owned by the world's largest offshore drilling company, Transocean Limited, a rig named the Deepwater Horizon. I turned on my computer in disbelief. It had to be wrong. Google, CNN, and the rest of the online world made no mention of the event. Then I turned to my blog, G Captain, and I saw it. A longtime reader, Captain Thad Fenley, was laying anchors for another Transocean rig just 10 miles away from the horizon, snapping pictures and posting the first public images of the rig in flames. I stared at the 300-foot-high fireball that seemed to consume the entire horizon. My heart plunged in my chest. My eyes started to well. My anguish was reflected all around me. A half-dozen among the Deepwater Ascension crew had previously worked on the horizon. Countless others had friends, neighbors, or family aboard. One's brother had been a member of the crew working around the derrick where the explosion had ignited that night. The Horizon wasn't just any rig to me. I had worked for Transocean for 7 years, and I had spent nearly 10 years, on and off, on ships contracted to BP, the company for which the Horizon was drilling. Faces of those I knew on the Horizon flashed painfully in my mind. Mark Hay, the subsea engineer on my first rig, the Discover 534, had been generous sharing his knowledge with a green hand. Mike Mayfield had reported directly to me on the rig Discover Spirit, and had been a willing teacher to a boss 2 decades younger than himself. Kurt Kukta, a friend with whom I had risen through the Transocean ranks, was the Horizon's captain. And Dave Young. Dave, the Horizon's chief mate, was one of my closest friends. We'd met in 1996 as second-year students at SUNY Maritime. We sailed the world together in the Academy's training ship. We stayed close through the years as we both married and started families. In fact, I was the reason Dave was on the Horizon. For years, I'd invited him to come to work in the oil field. I was still with Transocean in 2007 when he finally agreed to apply, and I'd pull whatever strings I had to get him in the door. I kept looking at the picture of the all-consuming fire, still raging, I knew, 5,000 miles away to the west and north. It was late at night back home. Should I call Dave's wife, Alyssa? My God, they'd just had their 3rd child a few weeks before. I began waking friends with Transocean in Houston, and I followed the updates flowing in from Thad Fenley and the other boat captains who were participating in the rescue efforts and updating everyone via G Captain, which by now had got the attention of many of the Horizon crew's families who were posting frantic pleas for information. But for long hours, no one knew the fate of the crew. No one had heard from those who were aboard the Horizon. No one knew if Dave was still alive. I watched a crewmate dial the numbers for the onboard phones on the Horizon. They just rang and rang and rang. That night, 12 hours after we first heard the news, the captain passed word that all crew had been rescued. Excitement and relief had spread across the ship as we approached Cape Town, South Africa. But soon, our elation turned back to grief with the word that 11 men were missing. Before long, that turned to hadn't made it. I was relieved so many had been rescued, but I couldn't get those who would never come home to waiting friends and family out of my mind. As the ongoing environmental catastrophe caused by the burning and then sinking of the Horizon came to dominate the news, the focus of the public quickly shifted to the marshes, beaches, and waterways threatened by the spreading black cloud of oil, and to the impotence and frustration of multiple failures to stop the flow from the ruptured well a mile beneath the ocean surface.